Hi everybody, it's Heather from Good Morning Wilton, and I am here at Town Hall because today we're going to be talking town government with Wilton's first select woman, Lynne Vanderslice. So I'm going to turn the camera around and get a chance to speak with her. Here we go. Hi, how you doing, Lynne? Everybody,
I'm
this
great.
is Lynne Vanderslice.
Hey everybody, gonna kill Heather for this, but that's okay.
Live video is awesome. So it's great to be in your office. I love seeing, you really love these drawings. I
do. And I love, the second graders aren't coming until the spring this year, so I missed it in October when they weren't coming. But I come in every day, open the door, and that just, no matter what's going on, that brightens your day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know when my kids came through, that's always such a highlight for the kids, and I'm sure it feels really good for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about, you've had your 4-year term,
right?
Your first 3 years kind of under your belt. You've got 1 more year ahead of you. So I want to talk about a couple months ago at the Board of Selectmen meeting, you set out an agenda for what you wanted to do this year.
Right.
And when you ran, you set out an agenda for what you wanted to do when you were in office. Have you gotten done the things you want to get done? How's that going for you?
So anybody that followed the campaign or looked at my campaign website knows that I put together a very detailed set of goals with very detailed steps underneath it as to what I wanted to accomplish. And actually happy to have that here because I keep it right here by my desk, and I go back once a quarter or whatever and see how I'm doing on the progress. And you can kind of, sorry for the visual, but you look here, green means that I've accomplished it, yellow means I'm working on it, red means I haven't done it at all, and I only have one area where I feel like I haven't really done anything in that regard. So the primary goals were, one is to reduce the growth in the mill rate through containing costs and the growth of the grand list itself. So I think I said that I was going to control costs by looking at head count, making adjustments where appropriate, and I've done that. We've cut a number of positions or merged positions. The other was to share services with the Board of Ed, which we've done with the facilities director position and the CFO position. They're now shared between the Board of Ed and the town. And the other area was sharing services with other towns. So I focused on those first 2 areas first. Now I'm focusing on that. I'm working with one town in particular. We've decided that we're great partners. I don't have anything I can announce today, but I hope that there'll be some things that will be announced fairly quickly and definitely in 2019. I really think that's where we need to go. We can only, in order to have the same level of safety in town, the confidence that somebody's going to be there if you have a fire or if you have an emergency, to have the streets plowed as quickly as we want to get them plowed and done as well as we want them done. You can only cut so far. We're actually adding back a person in the DPW department that was cut probably more than 10 years ago, about the time of the recession. So I think we've done what we can do here, and in really the future in cost savings is to share certain services with other towns.
It's interesting. You mentioned the DPW because I know that that's always something that you hear about, whether it's on Facebook or See Click Fix, and that was a big priority for you as well.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And that another area of a priority was the infrastructure, and the roads are probably the one element of infrastructure that impacts everybody, and we know from the votes that it's the most important thing to people. So the plan that we put in place in my second year, which to pave 15 miles a year for 5 years, and then bring every road 10 years or younger, is working. We paved 15 miles last year. This year we got a little bit, didn't get to do as much as we wanted to do this year because of the rain, but we're still on track to do 15 miles this year. And I hear from it about it from people. People are happy that we're getting that done. So I think you're really, in driving these roads, you really understand the importance of the DPW department and getting that work done. So in the other area of infrastructure that I said that we would focus on is really taking a comprehensive look at what needs to be done and plan it out. So we're doing that with the committee that is looking at this town campus, at the police station, and these buildings. We have the Fire Station 2 committee, but also what I said is I want to minimize borrowing. And that's part of why you look at everything on a long-term basis, and you look at everything critically. That's one of the reasons that we have that space at Comstock, that building's been renovated. The systems in there are new, but we have a good amount of underutilized space there, or not utilized space. And so that's really kind of the concept of looking at these problem buildings here, and rather than renovate, can you move some people up there? So that's all kind of falls under that same umbrella. Look at your infrastructure. How do you fix it, but how do you minimize what you spend?
Will that be part of the discussion for the town budget this coming year?
The town budget this year, I hope to have a longer term analysis for that budget this year. Hopefully we'll get there. But we have one of the other things that I've done that I didn't expect to do was I joined the executive committee of the Western Council of Governance. I don't know if everybody knows, but in Connecticut there are these different regions. There's 18 towns and cities in what we call WestCog, and it was specifically because of infrastructure and transportation issues that I got involved with at that level, because there's state money that's available, and if you're in the executive committee, you'll learn a lot, and you see the access right away. That's how we're looking to fund the pedestrian bridge, is through a low-SIP grant that would come through the Western Council of Governance. And so we talked about a Board of Selectmen meeting, we've applied for it, and we'll see if we will get that.
Okay.
And so I guess, let me just say, if you're okay.
Please, go ahead.
So as I go through this list, I said, I've pretty much talked about most of the things. The last one is increasing voter engagement, and we've done all those things that we said we would do. But the area that has the red, where I feel like I haven't fulfilled what I said I would do, and that was really to re-examine the 2009 report that was done on elderly and disabled tax relief. I had hoped that we would be able to re-examine that, maybe come up with a better or a more effective program, and increase some funding. But it was clear that we couldn't increase the funding. You keep waiting for something better to happen to open up some funding. So I do want to look at that this year, whether or not we would have additional funding in the 2020 budget. It's going to be a very, very tough budget, but at least start laying the groundwork for some kind of an analysis of it, and what could be possible. We have done some things for seniors. We've started that senior discount program that's going to be rolling out soon. We do have that. We rolled out the discounted prescription plan, which is eligible to anybody in town, but we expect that it's going to be used by some of the seniors if they don't already have coverage. And we did budget some additional expense for them. And the state in April announced that they were stopping their funding for senior tax relief, and we did pick that up as a town. But that's one area that I have to work on.
I know that the town is looking ahead in terms of the residents of the town. There's where tax bills are coming in, and there's talk about the revaluation. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my 2019 priorities. So the residents we don't have final numbers yet, but residents will be receiving their new valuation at the end of December. So the last time we did the revalve in 2012, there was a 20% decline in values. We're not going to see anything like that. The values are going to be, overall, we're not going to see any significant change. That's the expectation. You're going to find that you might see significant changes on an individual basis, but not overall. If we just look at the average home market value is about $750,000 in Wilton, so the market under $750,000 has been really strong. Even the 750 to the 850, 900 is strong. It's when you get past $1 million. So the house across the street from me, my former neighbors, they purchased it in 2002, I think it was. They sold it just in the last year for 33% less than they paid for it, but the 2012 valuation was approximately the same number as what the new owners paid. So for some of the high end, that 30% reduction that they've seen is already in there. So really, it's going to be very individualized what the change is going to be, but overall, on housing, we're not expecting a significant drop, and commercial is just not done. So those numbers will come out in early January.
Okay. You talked about priorities for 2019.
Yeah.
You've got one more year ahead of you. What are your priorities for 2019?
So obviously the 2020 budget is a priority. I'm not going to have I don't expect to have any labor reductions or consolidations like we had in the last budgets. So that's going to make it difficult. We have been running an average in 3 years of a 1.1% growth rate, budget growth rate. So I have been able to slow down, or we have, because it's really the town departments working with them, been able to slow down the growth. We have also returned $2 million in the 3 years that have closed during my time in office.
That's significant.
Yeah, and some of that is because we didn't budget to eliminate some of those positions, or we didn't budget, say, to consolidate the CFO. So we've had savings in that regard, and we've had a lot of turnover, which, based on the years of service that people have been here, we knew that turnover was going to happen. So every time there's a vacancy, we look at it and we say, do we need to fill it? And even if we need to fill it, it takes time. So a lot of that $2 million has been labor savings. Some of it's this permanent, and some of it that was just temporary, but we were able to take advantage of it. And that $2 million, what happens is it goes back into the general fund as undesignated, and that's the money that the Board of Finance can now then pull into the next year's budget to reduce what the tax bill is for the residents. So the money really does go back. So this is going to be tough. Healthcare is one of the big issues, has been every year. Everybody knows that. They've seen their own escalating costs. We are looking at the state has a plan that they developed for municipalities. Without questions, there's savings as a result of it. We're now doing the analysis of how does that compare to our plan. Is the savings real? Is the state subsidizing this plan, and when the subsidies goes away, what's the penalty if you leave that plan? We're going through that whole analysis now. And of course, some of our unions, we have negotiated that we can open up health, and others we're going to have to negotiate it. So it's not going to be a quick overnight, but it is part of something that we're looking at in this budget. The biggest risk in the 2020 budget is the potential of a pension push down from the state. I started talking about this a couple of years ago. For a long time, I'm one of the few people who reads the entire financial statement, including all the footnotes. And so you see the growth in that number in June 30, 2015 financial statements. The payment made by the state on behalf of Wilton teachers into the pension plan was $7 million. In June of 2017, the number is $14.5 million. So it's not, it was clear that the state was going to do something about this. So I don't know.
I mean, there was a threat last year.
That's right.
And it didn't materialize. But
That's
this
right.
year,
He put it out there. I think it's still there on the table. So, we'll have to see what, the result. We've got a lot of new people. We have a new governor. But the pension problem is huge. The debt problem is huge. And the only component that really involves the municipalities is the teacher pension. And so I'm expecting that we're going to get something. So we're doing now. Whether that has anything to do with my budget, or if that whole amount goes against the Board of Education budget, or I don't know where it's going to come out. But if we were to have to pick up $1 million or $2 million or $3 million of pension, it affects anybody. It does everyone. It doesn't make any difference what budget it's going to come out of. It's a major expense for the town to absorb. So that's always going to be in the back of my mind as we go into this budget. And based on the way that things have gone, surprises come from Hartford near the end of their process. And so, we could be done with our budgets and find out about it. But that, I talked a little bit about infrastructure, and then the other area of focus for me is preparing for when the moratorium on 830G ends, and that ends at the end of December of 2019. So if anybody doesn't know what 830G is, that refers to a Connecticut statute that allows a developer to pretty much get around almost all of our zoning regulations if they are going to have a 30% affordable component of their project. So if you want to come in here and you want to put an apartment building, it's 30% affordable, then and you can come in with a proposal that's 8 stories high, even though we don't allow 8 stories. And it's very difficult to deal with it. People may remember 44 Westport Road, where a developer wanted to put in 20 units at that corner of Dudley and Westport Road. That was an 830G. So we have a moratorium, and as I say, it ends at the end of December. My approach has been to try to get as many of the places where you might want to put an 830G filled with a development that we as a town are comfortable with. Generally, you're going to want to put 830G where there is sewer and water, which means Route 7. So residents would prefer any development to happen on Route 7. So we've really seen a pickup in activity on 7. You can kind of see the open spaces, and if people have been following it, then they know we have the corner of Sharp Hill and 7. That's been purchased. Something's going in there. Probably a mixed use is what I'm expecting. We have the assisted living where Orms was across the street. We now know the Church of the Latter-day Saints is going to be buying that. 300 Danbury Road, obviously, that's happening.
Which is the Wilton Heights project.
The Wilton Heights. And the other big parcel was the corner of Pimpawag and 7, and Bright View Living has come in with that. I know there's some people who say, ugh, not another senior living project. Couple of things. One, that is where demand is. If you look at the demographics, you can see the growth that's going to happen in that population who needs that as baby boomers age out. My dad's 91 years old. A year ago, we moved him to or helped him move to a senior housing. It's independent living, but it has these great services, and he loves it. He wasn't enthusiastic about it, but now he goes down to yoga class and exercise class, and he can play, cards with somebody or socialize in the social rooms. So it is good, and there's a lot of people in this town in my age or younger who have parents who are hitting those ages and looking to bring them to town. So it not only benefits the seniors that are here or maybe seniors in neighboring communities, but it benefits people my age. And Heather, you're probably going to get that to that point yourself.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Mom, if you're watching.
Yeah. So the other thing is those facilities bring in a lot of tax dollars. But other than, a higher frequency of medical assistance from maybe the fire department or the police department or EMS, they don't really cause a drain on services. So for instance, the 2 facilities that we have right now, we collect over $600,000 in property taxes. So that goes a long way to helping out with the other costs. Mm-hmm. The objective is not to generate more revenue so we can spend more revenue. The objective is to generate the revenue so we can slow the growth of the mill rate, keep the mill rate flat or something like that. It's not let's have them build so we can go spend it on something.
Right.
So those are the main priorities for 29 within the town budget. I've talked to one legislature representative, I guess state senator. You reported that yesterday. I had a meeting with our state senator. I'm having a meeting with Gail LaVielle. I'm trying to bring Gail LaVielle, Tom O'Day, and Will Haskell together into a meeting with all the town department heads so we can talk about our priorities for their next session, their 2019 session. So, and that, of course, we'll talk about the pension, we'll talk about infrastructure, the Grumman Hill intersection, we really need to get that done. There's a lot more enhancements that could be done to 7. So that's a priority. And then the other is binding arbitration. I don't know if most people know how that works in Connecticut, but it's state law, and when you go to arbitration in negotiating your contract, you each put your best offer on the table, and the arbiter is required to pick one or the other. The arbiter doesn't have the discretion, which you would have in most arbitrations, where you listen to the 2 sides and then the arbiter comes up with what they think makes sense. It's a column A, column B, and you pick. So it just sets it up, it makes it costly for everybody participating, though more so for the towns. And it's just not the way to come up with the best arrangements. So that's something that I hope that we can make some progress on. And we really need to if we want to move towards more regionalized, more sharing of services between towns.
Wow. So it sounds like you had a really full agenda and you still have a pretty full agenda. It begs the question, you have 1 more year on this term. Do you want to run again? Are you going to run again?
Well, let me say this. I'm going to qualify what you said. It sounds like you had a really big agenda and you still have a really big agenda, because I have a lot of green.
You do.
Done. And I have a lot of...
That just says you had...
I had a lot.
A lot you wanted to do.
Yeah, and there are a number of things as I'm looking this. We didn't even talk about the public-private partnerships in Shanks Island and all that we're working on. So I do feel like I worked hard on these. I've made a lot of progress. I am committed to getting these things done, and so staying as long as I need, but no longer, to get these things done. So we'll just see where we are.
I'd love to push you for a yes or a no.
You're not getting anything other than I have my work to do, and I made these promises, and I do stand by these promises.
Okay. Look, I appreciate you spending all this time with us this morning. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And, I hope everybody... Lynne talked about engagement. There are so many ways for everybody to get engaged, even if it's just simply watching Channel 79 or reading Good Morning Wilton or reading whatever source it is about municipal news. I think it's important for people to stay up on these issues. It clearly impacts everybody when you get your tax bill, when you're sending your kids, when you're deciding you want to sell your house and downsize. It impacts everybody. So I think it's important to stay up on the issues, stay engaged. Lynne has always said she is open to hearing from residents. She wants emails. She can't respond on Facebook. She said that multiple times, but she wants to hear from people. You can come to meetings, check the town website, and you can see a full calendar of all of the different town boards and commissions. They all welcome public comment. There's space always set on an agenda for public comment. So you have an opportunity to let your elected officials know what you're thinking. And, you know, Lynne's email address is Lynne with an E at wiltonct.org.
Oh, we've got the Vanderslice.
Oh!
Lynne with an E dot Vanderslice.
Lynne with an E dot Vanderslice at wiltonct.org. Let her know what you're thinking. Let her know how she's doing. Let her know what you want done. And, you know, everybody stay engaged. Thank you so much for your time. And I'll see you, everybody. I actually have another Facebook Live coming up later this afternoon, and it's a completely different situation. Believe it or not, you're going to see me in a sauna. Okay, everybody.
Bye.
I'll see you. Take care.